ठीक है, कर दिया कर।
मैं यहाँ से म्यूटेड रखती हूँ और जब मैं बस सिर्फ जब वीडियो चलाऊंगी तब मेरे को यहाँ का ये करना है ना।
एक मिनट बैठो।
देखो यूट्यूब में क्या लिखा है। कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग कुछ वैगरह कुछ नाम दिया है?
हाँ, how to use your tech skills to even better engagement.
तुम्हें तो नहीं आ रहा, कुछ और बताइए। टाइमलाइन।
Yeah.
वरना लिंक बता दो इनका। कुछ और बताइए। ठीक है, थोड़ा सा लैग। ठीक है, रिकॉर्डिंग इज ऑन यूट्यूब वाला, इट्स लाइव।
ठीक, मैंने मेल किया था सर अभी आपको, लिंक दोनों किए हैं, लिंक भी। हाँ हाँ, मेल किया बस। ठीक है,
इसको ओके कर दे, इसको ओके कर दो ना।
ओके ओके।
और इसको ऑफ कर सकते हैं, चलने दो।
ये चलने दो, क्रॉस करने दो।
अच्छा, मेरे को ये बता दीजिए म्यूटिंग अनम्यूटिंग।
हम सबको म्यूट ही रखेंगे।
सबको म्यूट पे रखेंगे।
ठीक है, तो
इनको
पहले
पोस्ट
पहले
करा दो सबसे पहले तो। हाँ,
प्रांजल।
प्रांजल और निकिता राजेंद्र, ये वाला। और निकिता एन से।
ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे ना ये ऑप्शन है, नोट ऑन एंट्री प्रस्तुत, ये ऑप्शन हम अनचेक कर देंगे तो
अलाउ अटेंडेंस टू अनम्यूट देमसेल्व्स। हाँ,
ये लॉक हो गया।
अब लॉक हो गया, ठीक है।
अब जैसे उनको हटाना होगा तो हम चेक मार्क कर देंगे।
तो किसी एक पे अगर मेरे को करना है, जैसे
एक पे नहीं होगा, एक साथ ही होगा, उसको कोहोस्ट बनाना पड़ेगा। तो हम अभी हटा देते हैं।
कहाँ से आ रहा है ऑप्शन? तीन, ये वाला।
क्योंकि ये पार्टिसिपेंट्स मतलब ये बोलेगा, उसी में आएगा।
ठीक है।
अभी हमने अनलॉक रखा हुआ है, लॉक करना है तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, लॉक कर देते।
लॉक ही रखना है ना हर्ष, सारे अटेंडेंस का?
हाँ मतलब मैं एक्सप्लिसिटली किसी को अनलॉक कर पाऊंगा ना?
नहीं, एक्सप्लिसिटली अनलॉक करने का ऑप्शन नहीं है। एट अ टाइम
मतलब उनको राइट
एवरीबॉडी विल
क्लिक
बी
करके
अनम्यूटेड।
हम उसको को होस्ट
नहीं
बना
नहीं,
सकते हैं, मतलब अगर किसी को करना है तो उसको को होस्ट बनाना पड़ेगा।
ये क्वेश्चन
सपोज अभी आप
बोलो।
को होस्ट बनाएंगे तो वो तो गलत हो जाएगा मतलब।
Should we just give the option to keep them unmute themselves जब भी उनको कुछ बोलना है, एंड शुरू में ही डेकोरम
या
बोल देना।
क्या है ठीक।
लॉक हटा दीजिए।
एंड अदरवाइज तो वी आर देयर इफ समवन इज नॉट फॉलोइंग इट वी
हाँ,
कैन
if not
ऑलवेज।
following then we'll have to mute। अगर अगर कोई ऐसा होता है तो फिर मेरे को बस यहाँ पे जाके इनको
एक सिस्टम में सकते हैं, मेल कर देता हूँ बस।
लास्ट वाला आप कर लो। निकिता, अपना पासवर्ड मुझे एक बार व्हाट्सएप कर दो कि सिस्टम का लॉगिन करना है।
अच्छा, मैं करती हूँ।
वो अनिमेश जी से ना मेल करवा दो सबको मीटिंग स्टार्टिंग
वही
का।
कर रहे हैं, वही कर रहे हैं, इस doing that।
अभी ये पब्लिक हो चुका है, तो जो भी डिस्कशन हो रही है पब्लिक है। ऐसे डाल दो।
Thank you everybody for joining. We'll just start in 5 minutes. Just let everybody settle in and we'll start in 5.
Sure, thank you.
Prerna, I think we can begin.
Yes, hi. Should we begin?
Yeah. Can you share the screen?
Yes. Yeah, good to go.
Yeah. So, good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking time on a Sunday to join. The idea for the webinar is that NHAI has recently advertised a few positions for its digital team within product management, solution architecture, GIS, and learning and support. These are not the first time we have advertised positions. We have an existing team. Many of the members are here today with us. So the idea right now is to explain to prospective applicants what is it to do IT at NHAI, right? For someone who's not privy to what happens within NHAI, other than the fact that roads are getting built, what is the exact role of IT in making all of this happen? And what is the possible role the product manager or a solution architect would play in doing this? We have the existing team also joined in this webinar. So we have the product managers, the GIS people, etc. So they will be talking about the projects they've done. And if you have questions, you can directly ask them. So the idea is we'll first sort of unbox what NHAI does, other than the fact, which is the most obvious, that we build highways, but what goes behind the scenes in making those highways, and where IT fits in. And IT plays a majority role here. And so how do we, what's the role IT does and what can we do within it? Then we'll talk through some of the projects which we have, right? So if you're a product manager or a GIS person who's applying, what are the existing projects which we already have, where potentially you might play a role, or similar projects which you might end up playing a role at. So we'll go through each of the projects where the team will talk about the projects they've been doing at. So you'll get a chance to interact with the existing team also. And in the end, we'll go through the vacancies. So to any of you who would have done their research, we have 5 vacancies, and we'll go through what those vacancies are, what are the requirements, and how does one apply to these positions. Because it wouldn't be the it's slightly a typical process. So we'll just walk through it. How do you go through that process and make your application? The last date for application is the 30th of October, right? So you would have at least 16, 17 days after this to make your application. So we'll begin. Prerna, next.
There's a little lag, so I'm doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the current team. So I'm Harsh, I'm advisor IT here. I work on systems. Previously, I worked with the Ministry of Rural Development, where I looked at Narega, rural roads, etc. Largely around how can we use tech to improve service delivery. We have the remaining team members here also joined. I'll just do a small one-liner on all, and they will introduce themselves eventually when their part comes in the presentation. Dr. Prerna is our GIS expert. Before this, she used to be on ships doing oceanography and mapping the ocean floor for India's maritime boundaries. Pranjal is our product manager. Before this, he was in the private sector in Coding Ninjas, where he used gamification and nudging to make sure people who start courses actually complete them. Nikita is our data scientist. She, before this, used to work at Airtel, where she used to build machine learning models to figure out churn, who's going to switch from Airtel to, say, Jio, or where do you put up your next telecom tower, which is the most profitable. Rajendra is also a data scientist with us, comes from an econometrics background. So previous to this, he was with Accenture, where he was doing analytics for retail chains across US and Europe. And before that with Indian School of Business, where he was looking at secondary data to figure out India's economics. Sneha and Amit are recent joinees. Sneha is a product manager. Before this, she used to work in an agro market portal. And Amit is another joint advisor, GIS, comes from a road safety background. It's very interesting for us. So he comes from a road safety background and is helping us figure out what we can do around road safety using GIS. So that's the team. Each of them would obviously come in and talk about their projects. Next. So yeah, NHAI is an authority. And so I'll try to break this down completely. So NHAI is an authority. An authority you can think of as a government department, but with more autonomy. So it is a government department in itself with more autonomy. It comes under the Ministry of Road Transportation and Highway, right? And 1 in 2 national highways, which you would have seen while you are traveling, NHAI would have been the agency which would have helped build that highway, right? So it's a lean organization. It's a old organization. It's been there since 1988. It's a lean organization. We have, say, maybe 1,000, 1,500 people on roll across India. And people from NHAI would be in state offices, district offices. We call them ROs and PDs, and they would be in charge of making sure the highways in their jurisdiction get built, right? So that's the larger idea. But it is not just about building highways, but before you decide what to build, it's an extremely complex thing in which you have to figure out which highways to build, what would be their alignments, what should be the design of the highway, depending on where it is going from, where it is going for. Then eventually building it also has a lot of quality tests, etc. Everything which goes into making sure an highway is built properly. Once it is built, you look at operations and maintenance. So maintenance is the ones which we all are privy to. So if there are potholes or cracks, etc., how do we make sure they are closed on time? Because you're monitoring a large network, how do you make sure everything is identified and closed on time? And operations includes tolling And so all the IT and the architecture which goes behind FASTag, tolling, and also accident monitoring. So many of you would have seen traffic cameras on the roads which you are in, the cities you are at, right? And we also are putting those cameras on our highways with the idea of reducing accidents, right? So if you see a camera, you change your behavior. So all of this, like this entire package comes under National Highway Authority of India. So it's not just getting roads built and talking to a contractor, but it's like the entire life cycle from the plan of where a road needs to be built, or where a VUP or like a foot over bridge has to be there, for example, not just like the entire road, but till the end of it, for making sure no accidents happen on the road. Next. So this I've covered, like it's an end-to-end thing. The only difference I would say is that it's a huge organization. It would probably be in the second or third number in terms of the amount of public infrastructure spending it does within India, right? Like, so post railways, if you would consider, National Highway Authority would be a major player in terms of the infrastructure it builds for the country. Next. So as I said, and it's the official logo also for National Highway Authority of India, it's not just about roads, it's about building a nation, and highways have an incredible multiplier effect, right? Once an highway is built, we have, I don't know, 1.5 or 2 crore transactions happening on the highway every day from FASTag. And so that's about just 1% of the cars. And if you could multiply it by number of people directly using the highway, it will be like 2% of India's population on a daily basis, but indirectly, entirety of the logistics which power the country and the economics of the country, highways play a huge part of it. And so there's generally like a multiplier effect, like a rupee you spend on building a highway, you get impact for like 4 to 5 times based on health outcomes, educational outcomes, market outcomes, etc. Rena, could you go to the organization?
Sorry, just a second.
So how does the organization work, right? So this would be, if you think of any company, right? The companies which you're working at right now, you'd have, say, a headquarter, you'd have people looking at different verticals, and then maybe there are sub offices depending on what kind of company you are at. You might have regional offices where people are in charge of different things. You might also outsource a few things, contract a few things, get in experts where required. But that's pretty much how the government would also operate, right? If you want to be in charge of building highways, you would have to operate in a certain hierarchy, right? So the team which is here, we are at the headquarter, which is in New Delhi. And for people familiar with New Delhi, it is in Dwarka. So we sit in Dwarka in New Delhi. This is the headquarter, which is part of the strategic planning, appraisals of which road would get built, approvals, budgeting, procurement, high-level monitoring, interventions. So a lot of it is here, right? And then we have regional offices. So for example, Gujarat would have a regional office, which is in RO Gandhinagar. Then we have a regional office in Ghaziabad. We would have a regional office in UP East West. So this is the next distinction. We'll have 26 regional offices. Within those regional offices, we'll have 203 PIUs. Right. So these are NHAI officers, but they are more closer to the implementation of things within their jurisdictions. Right. And then the last part, the biggest base is because NHAI works with the philosophy of a lean organization, the last base is where it relies on. So we have private contractors, concessionaires, which are the ones who are building the highway, which would be the most obvious. Then we have expert road safety auditors whose expertise lies in road safety, who are empaneled by us to conduct road safety audits, figure out what's in a road which can cause a possible accident in the future before it happens. We have independent engineers who are contracted by us, but are helping us supervise the contractors, right? Because we're a lean organization, and just supervising even a single highway is an extremely complex job, right? So these are highways which are built for thousands and thousands of crores, right? So we also rely on people who help us monitor. And so those are our AEIs. There are horticulture experts, right? If you would have gone to certain highways, you would have found that the trees are so great, right? On the median, the middle of the road, and on the side, you have amazing trees. But that's part of the policy. Like NHAI is supposed to plant trees in the median of the highway, and it has many impacts. Other than the obvious green impacts, it also has impacts on road safety. People slow down when there is a certain thing like that. So that also is a vertical within NHAI, which just looks over the plantation part, right? Monitoring trees, which species should be put up, etc. So all of this is part of the organization. And the last layer is where we bring in a lot of expertise. But right now, what we're talking about is the headquarter, which is what we are hiring for. But these would be, in a way, our internal stakeholders, right? Whenever you're building a product or a project, you're thinking about who are you building for. So the immediate answer would be you're building for these people if you're thinking about improving efficiency of NHI. But we also have a lot of directly citizen-facing things, which we will talk about. That is about when you're directly impacting any highway user, like you and I, whoever's going through that. Next. So before I hand over to Pranjal, I just wanted to make sure if you have questions, because it's slightly a relatively an intimate gathering. We have less than 100 people right now. So if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hands in the middle. But keep in mind that we will, what I said in the earlier, like that all will get covered eventually. If you have doubts about what is being covered right now, you can raise your hands or you can put it in chat and one of us will answer you or unmute you so you can ask directly. So I'll hand it over to Pranjal, who will talk about the main heart or like the brain of the IT system which powers NHAI. Pranjal?
All right, thanks, Harsh. Good morning to everybody on a Sunday morning, and I hope everybody is doing well. So, Harsh has already given a fair idea about what NHI is all about and what is the mandate that has been given to NHI, what NHI looks after. And I'll be talking more about how basically some of the products which NHI has created, which are integral to the working of NHI and making sure that the projects which NHI takes up, they are successful in in why were they sanctioned in the first place, right? So first of all, just just talking to you informally, how many of you thought that how many of you still think that it's NHAI and not NHAI? Like I used to say that in daily conversations. I used to be like NHAI, and it's not like NHAI, it's NHAI. Let's talk. Let's use the complete acronym. And right. So first we'll be talking about data lake. I'll give you a brief introduction about myself as well. So I'm Pranjal, and I have been a part of the system since 2022. And as just like you guys, I also got to know about this opportunity to LinkedIn. I have over 6 years of experience in product management, and I before this I was working in Coding Ninjas, where I was looking at the student learning platform. Before that, I was working in a startup in Noida who had clients overseas, primarily in the telecom sector. I started my product journey from nearby.com and working with the curation of deals and the platform and all of that good stuff. So on joining NHAI, it's really been a evolving journey, and it's not just changed us into the people who we are, but it's also helped create and shape out NHAI's IT architecture, right? So when we came into the picture, when I came into the picture, I saw that there is a platform called Data Lake, which is NHAI's custom developed ERP system, and they told me that it went live in 2020, and it was then migrating to the newer version of it, Data Lake 2.0, which was workflow based. 1.0 had its own issues, as I was told, and I could see when I came into the system that even though they had a creation of they used to create a unique project code for every project that has been taken up by NHAI to remove ambiguities in the various divisions that NHAI has. It still had limitations such as the documents were still being uploaded. It was mostly MIS driven rather than being in a workflow based system. There was less accountability from people, and the system used to put a lot of pressure on the internal NHAI users and the internal NHAI employees to update data frequently and to ensure everything is getting updated. And they had to fill these long forms and by themselves. So it wasn't a very good experience that if we used to talk about the feedback that we took at that time, the sentiments around this platform weren't that great. But as the team evolved and coming to the picture, we used to adhere to the timelines of making it into a making it into a workflow driven platform rather than from a MIS based system. So if you can move to the next slide, Prerna, please. So over here, as we see that data lake 2.0 basically got its wings in 2023, and it's a custom developed project management system. We have our in-house vendor who helps develop this platform. So the main role of our team over here is to be individual contributors. First, we have to understand what kind of projects we want to take up ourselves, what kind of impact we want to create. And secondly, if we need the team, there's always there. We have a support from the vendor and we can get things developed by ourselves and obviously in a pipeline. And yeah, so that's how they deliver stuff. So we have our own vendor, we have our own team who gets things developed, and they take care of the trading and all of that system as well. And we are the ones who are telling them mostly what needs to be built, how it needs to be built, and if there are any integrations that need to be done with some kind of external platforms or external government departments. So Data Lake 2.0 was launched in 2023. It's completely workflow driven, and with the coming of the system, we were able to generate a lot of good dashboards, a lot of good reports, which probably Nikita and Rajendra would be talking about in the later section of this part. Can we move forward, please? So as I said, so when we actually saw that due to the absence of workflows, we're not able to track the efficiency of who needs to do what, and it's the data that is being submitted was basically prone to disputes during litigations, and it wasn't very reliable. There were team level logins, which basically were like every office had their own login instead of every person having its own login on the platform, which reduced a lot of ownership on the system. There was a delay time in action. The reports were coming at a monthly basis after every month, and the data that was being generated was not real time. So these are all good, extremely good problem statements to have for a product manager, right? The problem statements were, you knew that there was a problem over there. However, the problem statements were not as defined as they could be. So the problem statements were vague. You know there's a massive chunk of a problem over there. You didn't need to go and look for a problem. You knew that there was a problem. You just need to define it well. You just need to tell out what the solutions could be, and you need to back your observations with data, and you can then push it into development based on the insights that you've done, and after speaking to the other team members as well, and after taking feedback from the field. Next slide, please. Next slide. So as I said, there was a lot of added pressure on the NHAI officials. However, NHAI, as Harsh said, right, NHAI is just an authority, right? NHAI manages contracts, NHAI manages people and all that. But the actual work which is being done on the ground is being done through contractors and engineers who are creating the highway, right? Who are creating it, who are maintaining it. NHAI just is into the picture to see that the contracts that have been signed with these contractors and engineers to ensure the creation and maintenance of the highways, they are being fulfilled to the best, right? There are no breaches. The work is being done in the timely manner. The milestones are being reached, right? And that's what the authority is all about. And the IT division in NHAI focuses more on facilitating the other divisions that are there to oversee this kind of work. So as Harsh said, we have our own road safety division, right? If road safety division needs any kind of an intervention, IT intervention, we are there to support them, right? Similarly, there are other divisions when it comes to land acquisition. We have our appraisals and approval committees, and all of those various life cycles of the project we'll be speaking, which we'll be talking about in the next section. Next slide, please. So this is just a summary of the larger challenges that we saw when we came into the system, and that's how we started to think about the different solutions and the different methods of how we can mitigate these. Next slide, please. So then we started to ensure that most of our modules which the users work on are workflow driven. And once they get workflow driven, the onus of adding the data onto the system basically lies on the contractors and the engineers who are actually working on the field, right? They don't need to be reminded of doing their work every day because they're actually doing it on the field, and they're just taking help from these IT interventions to make their lives more easier. They're able to see that all users are able to see their mandates on the platform itself. They're able to see what kind of activities are done on a daily basis, and obviously they get some reminders and alerts, right? And this is integral for the adoption of the whole new system that is being created. And the input from various stakeholders basically aids in tracking milestones and achieving them and preventing time and cost overruns. You know that highway construction is not an easy job at all, and we need to ensure that wherever there are time and cost overruns, we need to do immediate intervention over there and it needs to be definitely told to the leadership, right? So that they can again think about the solutions to ensure that the project comes back on the timeline and there are minimum cost overruns. So all of this comes as a part of good governance, right? And it does uh, come into the umbrella of Digital India, right? And right. So next slide, please. Are you there? Next slide. Right. So the project life cycle of highway project basically starts with the creation of its unique project code on the system itself, and then we come into the planning stage where the consultant and external person submits a project report, a detailed project report, which is also called DPR, on the platform itself, which is approved on the platform itself by the various committees. And finally, we are onboarding the contractor who is actually going to build that highway. In the DPR stage, we are mostly concerned about, as Harsh mentioned, what kind of alignment, where does the project where would the project traverse through, which districts, which states, which villages, and what are the costs involved? How much traffic are we envisioning on that particular site, right, on that particular highway? And once those approvals are given by our leadership in NHAI and in MORTH, which is the ministry governing NHAI, we then start onboarding the contractor. We give him the land which is required to construct the highways. And then once he is onboarded, he starts the execution work. And once the project is completed, it is commissioned, it is sent into O&M, the tolling starts, and then the operations and maintenance is start. Next slide, please. So these are a couple of modules which we have built in Data Lake 2.0, which are workflow driven, and we follow a bottom-up approach. The contractors, consultants, all of those have the onus to fill the data, and it goes to the project implementation units in the states. It then goes to the regional offices, which are generally in the capital of the states, and then it finally comes to the RO for approval. It comes to the headquarters for any kind of approvals. And we see that the life cycle involves pre-construction, construction, O&M. There are finance modules as well for payments. There are legal modules as well, and there are modules through which people are also managed on the site. Next slide, please. So definitely, when you talk about the beneficiaries of the portal, right? Definitely, the government is getting benefited through it by achieving the projects in a timely manner and preventing any kind of cost overruns as well, making sure that all the milestones are being met. The vendors are being achieved. They're getting the timely payments through these platforms. We have generated all sorts of reports for the leadership to view on a daily basis to ensure that the vendors over here are satisfied with the timely payments that are there and with all the contractual work that they're doing. And however, the main benefit that of this platform are 3 crore daily highway users, which are the people, you and I, right? And that being said, So let me just talk about what the different problem statements that we see over here, right? So I'm not sure how aware of you are in terms of how basically corruption happens, right? How malpractices happen in the system. Malpractices are generally developed when when these contractors and the external parties are actually expected to visit the offices to get their payments cleared, to get their letters, to get their approvals and all sorts of stuff. Whenever there is a human interaction between any kind of a government body and the vendors which are there on the field, that opens us to some form of malpractices, some form of corruption. There might be a chance. So the main goal of all this is to generate a lot of transparency in the system. We can actually track wherever the cases are pending with each and every officer of in the system, and we can ensure that there are extremely less human to human human to human meetings between the NHAI officials and the vendors, which actually reduces a lot of scope for corruption, right? Next slide, please.
Pranjal, there's a question for you.
Yeah.
Give one example. How do you deal with timely payment? If you want to take that up now or later.
I think so as I mentioned that most of our modules are workflow based. So timely payments start with the concessionaire raising their invoices in a very detailed, in a very in a very extensive format, comprehensive format on the portal itself. When that's being raised, then it goes to the engineer for vetting any kind of penalties, which probably my other teammates will be talking about in the later section. They will be applied, and then after that it will come to the project implementation units and finally dispersed through the finance part of those units. But the only thing that we are using over here for timely payments is the complete transparency of the processes. So we have our daily reports and daily alerts which go out to not just the people who need to take that action, but to also the leadership if there's any kind of a payment which is pending on the user for more than 7 to 10 days. Right, so we improve and we ensure that everything needs to be done in a timely manner. If not, then alerts are sent to the leadership, which are monitored and tracked efficiently every day. So, any other questions? Right. Just a thing that I would like to add over here is, I would urge you, all of you who are there today, right, there with us, to ensure that to just introspect yourselves and then talk about the motivation for joining this kind of a team, this kind of a dynamic and such a experienced and a vast team, right? So the motivation is very important. The motivation for me was that it's very easy for us to like the kind of perception that we had for any kind of government websites or government platforms, right? We understand that being a part of tech, being a part of IT, what we see is that the websites are not as per what we see on a daily basis, right? The websites, the platforms, anything that you use which has government IT link, that's not up to the same standards, right? You don't know whether it's going to work or whether it's not going to work. You are afraid actually to do your payments on these kind of government portals because you don't know whether the payment will go through or not, whether it'll bounce back or not. So the experience with government ID platforms has recently been a big problem for us now because we already have benchmarks, right, set by corporate and corporate company by the whole corporate sector that this is where things could be, right? And then when we look at the government, we are obviously shocked and appalled that have you just reached here till yet? So that was one of the big motivations for me to actually use my IT expertise and my product management skills to come into the system and to ensure that I get my hands dirty. It's very easy to blame everything from the outside. Come into the system, get your hands dirty, and try to improve each and everything that you feel bad about, right, from the outside. So that's that. So I would urge you to look at the motivation you guys would have to join this kind of team, this kind of a motivation, and looking forward to collaborating and to working with you in the future. Definitely. So now I hand it over to Harsh.
Hi, thanks, Pranjal. So I think also what Pranjal was saying on the challenges, I think from a product manager or a solution architect perspective, they're very interesting in the sense you've built something, why is it not getting used, or what is it that you should be building next, or what can we do to make sure the gains of IT actually come, right? So I think from a PM perspective, when you walk in and you see, and you come from a private sector, for example, and you come in and you realize, wait, this shouldn't be like this, right? And you come with that perspective, this shouldn't be like this, and then you slowly realize, okay, part of it, there seems to be a legacy reason why this is like this, which you can't seem to change. But a part of it is something which you can change, right? And you realize slowly you make incremental changes, you bring in those things. Like a lot of things which Pranjal is talking about has happened in the last 2 years. And so it's not that, even just to think about the conversation which is happening, right? He's talking about transactional systems, about bottom-up feedback, talking to users, monitoring KPIs, right? Even just bringing in those transactions is a significant thing, right? Which you will see impact for in later, when everyone within the room is also talking about KPIs, about, oh, did you talk to the field user? Did you go and figure out, is this what they want? Like just that conversation, even if a PM brings, that's great. There was a question on what is the architecture of data lake right now. The data lake architecture right now is, the database is Postgres, and on the web part of it is .NET and ASP. But we are moving towards 3.0, right? We are trying to redesign the system from scratch, because you can only do so much patchwork on a legacy system. And this is where I think the solution architect and the PM might have a great time figuring out what should be the architecture of a new government system, right? You get very limited chances in our setup, at least, to do something from scratch. And I would say this is like that once in a decade opportunity where you get to design an architecture from scratch. So that's what's happening also, and that's why we have this new hiring drive. So quickly moving to another product level insight which came up was that we were thinking, why is adoption not happening? And we realized most of the work is happening on the ground, on the field where the highway is. And if you want to sort of improve those things, like a contractor is on the ground, the auditor is on the ground, the O&M teams are on the ground. So if you want to sort of digitize those transactions, you need to have a mobile equivalent also of NHAI, right? And so that's where NHAI One came up. We thought we need a mobile app which digitizes the last mile activities, what's happening between the contractor, in its team, etc. For example, if we report a pothole, it should immediately go to the contractor on the app with the timer saying you have 48 hours. Like these simple things versus me sending them a letter, an official government letter saying a pothole has been identified. Like such simple gains. And there are many such low hanging fruits which you can tackle. So this is when NHAI One got ideated roughly 2 years ago, that we need to do last mile digitization. And it has a bunch of these components which I very quickly do before I hand it over to others, because we might run out of time. Next. As I said, we wanted something, this is for internal stakeholders, right? These are our teams, NHAI and the ones which we contract. We wanted to digitize even micro transactions from reporting a pothole. If the pothole gets fixed, you have to click a picture there. It says that a pothole has been fixed, so someone can see whether it has been fixed or not, and you get to know when it got fixed. Or we wanted to look at the cleanliness of toilets and public utilities on national highways, or the quality. So this is very micro transaction. So that was the idea. We'll use an app to do micro transaction and collect data as it is created. But typically in a web system, you've done something and you come back home on your office and you digitize, which creates a delay in digitization of data, hence a delay in decision making. But if you are able to digitize as it happens, you might be able to reduce that delay. And so that was the idea. And I think that's a very PM level insight. And so we tackled a bunch of these things, and we also made sure that whatever data gets created is actually used, which is where Nikita can talk about. Next. So attendance is about whether our engineers who are on the ground, the ones which we've hired, are actually going to the highway or not. Like the simplest thing, right? Because it's a huge country, and we are a lean organization. So without IT, we can't really monitor this. So simple app. The AE like the contracted engineer has to go on the field on our highway and give their attendance. Like they take a photo, they take a selfie, and we do face recognition, and we know they are on the highway. And just attendance. It doesn't prove that they did work, but you try to tackle different parts of the system. So this is just attendance. Next. Purnam? So simple app. Very interestingly, once we started doing this, people started taking pictures of pictures, right? And that's very fun. And usually that's what happens when you try to do something, they would do something, and then you do something. So people started taking pictures of pictures. People started using mock GPS applications and whatnot. And so then you try to improve your product. And then we say, okay, now it has to be like a video. You have to click, you have to blink, and it becomes like a live photo. Only when you blink is when it takes a photo. And then we are trying to reduce the we are trying to plug in loopholes that you cannot use developer mode, etc. So those things are happening right now. Next. The next is highway operations, which I was talking about, road maintenance. You can go to next. So the problem statement here was there are more than 65 kinds of defects which can happen on a highway, right? We know the most obvious ones as common travelers, potholes have happened, or suddenly there is vibration while you're driving. So it's called raveling. But there are, say, 65 kinds of defects. And each defect in our contract will have a timeline that this needs to be covered in 24 hours, this needs to be done in 48 hours, etc. And so the whole idea is, how is it, like, without IT, how do you even do this contract management, right? Like if there's so many defects, different timelines, different penalties. So we made a very simple intervention. Whoever is reporting the defect internally has to click a picture through the app and give the requisite information what that defect is. As soon as that is done, the contractor and his entire team gets a notification on the app that you have a defect which has been identified, and the timer according to the defect is this much. And then they have to go fix it and click a picture from the same area that it has been fixed, and then the photo goes to the engineer for approval. Okay, it has been fixed or not. Like very simple stuff which has been done, but extremely useful, because now we get to know one, whether defects are being reported by engineers or not. Two, whether they're being completed on time. Three, there is no ambiguity. Someone cannot tomorrow say, I had fixed it, not fixed it. When did I fix it? Because when do you fix it decides how much penalty you will pay. And so all of that subjectivity is reduced. And the moment you reduce subjectivity, it also reduces opportunities to do any kind of rent seeking, right? Because the contractor can always say, see, the system says I did it on time. Why are you telling me I didn't do it on time? And things like that. Next. Next. And so this has been going great. These are older numbers, but now we've roughly are about to touch 80,000 defects, like 80,000 defects which have been identified via the app and have been closed. So if you think about it, this intervention has allowed us to get transparency over, and maybe part of it also got fixed because of it. Roughly 80,000 potholes and things like that, right? Very system level check. A very simple product intervention, but has massive impact. Next. Next, Karlo. So this is for road safety also, like the same concept. There are road safety auditors who are experts. Like we have about 50, 60 experts which we've empaneled. They go once in 6 months on a highway and they figure out this particular highway spot can cause an accident, right? And like there is a manhole, like for example, in this photo, this is a place where an accident can happen, or they even identified things like, okay, this is where a lot of pedestrians are crossing. And so this can lead to accidents. So they are able to recommend, okay, we should make a foot over bridge here. we should plug the median opening, etc. So very important job. But what used to happen is they would do all of this and the same problem. They would submit like a 50 to 100 page report. And then what is happening with that report? One, it's taking time to submit it. And once that report is submitted, we don't know how many of the recommendations actually got completed or not, because it happens very decentralized. And so the app does a very simple thing. The auditor has to uh, do all the recommendations and photographs, everything on an app. And that way, the moment that is done, we can ensure end-to-end transparency of whether it is getting closed or not. We can also figure out whether the same kinds of defects are coming, whether it's clustering, etc. Like a lot of it opens up just by doing a very simple intervention. Next. So this has also been also maybe a year and a half old, a project which this digital team had proposed, and it's been used very nicely. Next, this is the toilet maintenance is about on national highways. I don't know whether you've had the fortune or the misfortune to use a highway on the national highways. A lot of times they're extremely good in condition, a lot of times they're not in good conditions, right? Last year in October, there is this drive throughout the government to ensure cleanliness across offices, etc. At that time, we decided we'll use that opportunity to one, get an inventory of how many toilets come under a national highway authority. And these are important things, right, which improve the experience of a user who's driving their truckers, etc. And so who are long distance trucking, right? And so we first did an inventory. We figured out we have roughly 1,200 toilet blocks. And then every day you are supposed to click a picture. Like even in a typical mall or in your office, the cleanliness staff goes and cleans it and then marks it, right, that they have cleaned it today. And so the same thing, but on an app, which can be monitored, and they have to click a picture whether they've cleaned it or not. And obviously, no person should be looking at these pictures whether it's been cleaned or not. But that Nikita will cover how we how we solved this using machine learning. Rita, can you go to construction audits? This Nikita will cover. So we'll skip.
Yeah, just going.
So then I'll take a question. Rishi says, according to NHAI, how much time does it take to fix a pothole of 1 square foot? As per the contracts, the contractor once reported should be fixing it in under 48 hours, depending on weather condition. For attendance, we use a third-party SDK. You don't necessarily have to build everything internally. We are more solution-oriented. So whatever we can get, we'll use it and fix it. And so we use a third-party SDK for the live image detection. It's through a vendor. And so I'm saying I know that what the vendor has used, so that's why I'm saying it. Dharmik says, are we planning to use Gen AI for data lake 3.0? I think so. I think what you are saying that with loads of data reports can be digitized and can be summarized, etc. I think that's a huge use case which we are looking at right now, because we deal with a lot of bulky documents, right? And so I think we have to meaningfully scope what we want, and that's the hard part. The tech is there, but we need to figure out how to meaningfully use, because we don't want to do trophy projects which are just cool. We want to make sure something which we do is actually used. So the last one is construction audit, similar to an audit, but it happens every day. Whenever the road is being constructed, like a road gets constructed in multiple layers. It's an extremely complex 1,000, more than 1,000 activities are being done on a highway. And so as and when they are happening, someone has to click and do the testing, because you can't test once the next layer has been built. So you have to do it almost on a daily basis. And so that also we've digitized through the app. Quickly next. And this I think is the one of the major things which we suffer from, also road quality. And so now what can happen is, say 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line, we figure out that a road which was constructed, a part of it is not built properly, is caves in. Now you can go there, 5 years later, you can go there, you can stand there and you can figure out that who was the inspector who had inspected this particular part, this particular 10-meter instance of the highway, what were the test results and what was approved. Like that level of transparency is now possible 5 years down the line, because now we've started digitizing everyday quality tests which are happening, who's approving by name. And so that level, that chain of accountability is being created for future purposes. Quickly, can we go to the next? Next. Right. So I'll stop here. I would say for the upcoming year, I think we have a lot to do with this app, right? Once we are redesigning the app for sure and making it more intuitive to use. But second, there are, I think, at least 10, 20 more use cases of an internal app, right? We've only touched the surface here. Uh, and we are not even covering all stakeholders yet. So I think there's a lot to be done here in terms of solutioning, but also in terms of adoption. It's it's the same which you would do as a PM in a private sector B2C app. There are differences and constraints because this is B2B in a way, like it's G2G for us. But that's the challenge part of it. But I'll stop for now. We'll take challenges later. Prerna. And we'll be mindful of time. We are taking questions. We'll try to close by 1:15 max. The last part of the presentation is about how do you apply and what is the process. So a little bit of the work now and then that. Prerna.
Nikita, could you come in please for toilet maintenance?
Yeah. So hello everyone. So I'm Nikita and I work here as a data scientist. So I joined here around 2 years back, and in total I have around 5 years of experience as a data scientist. So when I joined here, like as Pranjal and Harsh introduced, there were two of these products, Data Lake and NHAI One. So now there were different problems. Like some of the problems were purely analytics based. Like for instance, Harsh talked about the road maintenance module. So now what kind of defects are being submitted? So there are different KPIs which you can track to see like what whether we are achieving what we are trying to do with a certain module. Same with toilet maintenance and other modules. So there were some of these tasks for which we used basic Python scripts using pandas, NumPy, etc. Then we started building dashboards, and Prerna, could you move to the AI/ML part? The next slide. So then we started building models as well. So like Harsh talked about road maintenance. So let's start with a model which we used for the Prerna, the next slide, please. Yeah. So I'll talk about this model first. So so now here, the problem we saw was that so we have different categories for defects like potholes, then raveling, etc., etc. But what we saw was that when an engineer submits a defect, most of the times they choose the category other and they submit the defect. Now the reason for that could be because other had a defect rectification timeline of 7 days. But some other defect categories like potholes had a time of only 24 hours. So in such cases, the engineers would choose the category others so that the time for defect rectification is longer. So in order to avoid this, what would be the solution for this? So in order to approach this, we built an in-house AI-based model which would take the text remarks. So in most of these cases, the engineer would actually submit the actual defect in the remarks part. So we would take the text remark, like for instance, you can see this image on the left as well. So here, the user had selected the defect type as others, but in the inspection remarks, you can see road sign tower. So it's actually a road signage defect, but being submitted as a others defect. So in order to approach this, we used NLP techniques on this text-based remark and tried to predict the correct defect type. So we suggest top 5 defect types to the user, and then like the user has an option to either stick with the original category, others, or select one of these remarks. Okay, next slide. In order to do this, basically, we first cleaned the remark, then we used techniques like removing stop words, stemming, amortization, and converting the text to numerical format using techniques like TF, IDF. Then we used we experimented with multiple NLP models, and we found out that multinomial naive-Bayes model worked best for our case, and we were able to predict the top K. The K can be given as an input by the user as well. So the top 5, for instance, defect types for a particular remark. And we were able to achieve good precision and recall with this model. So this model is one example of AI/ML use case in these products. So another project which I worked on here was toilet maintenance. So basically, so in toilet maintenance, now again, as Harsh said, we first built an inventory of toilets with us. So now we have we have around 1,200 toilet blocks, and for each toilet block, we are aware of how many WCs, how many urinals, how many basins the toilet block has. Now the task was to see that whether the toilets are being kept clean or not. So every day, the toilet supervisor submits the toilet block images at around 11 a.m. By 11 a.m., they have to submit. Now, no one should be checking these images manually, right? So, in order to use these images, use AI/ML on these images to predict whether the toilet is clean or not, we built an AI/ML model. And to do that, we approach the problems as into two parts. So first, as a first step, we used an instance segmentation model. First, separate an image into different objects, like for instance, WC, urinal, basin, wall, floor, etc. So for the image you can see here, we can identify 3 objects here, like the wall, the basin, and the floor. So first, we identify the boundaries. So if you see the image, the object boundaries are clearly identified. So first, we use instance segmentation to identify the boundaries of each of these objects, and then we classify each of these objects as clean or unclean. Now, in order to approach this, so Prerna, please next slide. So in order to approach this, so for instance segmentation, we had the raw images of the toilets as our input. And the first task was to build training data. So in order to predict these boundaries, we basically needed to have some examples from which the model could learn. So we manually labeled certain images using tools like Label Me, and we annotated these different objects again, like wall, floor, basin, etc. So after doing that, we cleaned the images, split them into different sets like training set, test set, and then I used a pre-trained mask-R CNN model in order to basically create boundaries of these different objects. So the model is pre-trained, but we used transfer learning in order to fine-tune the model using our data. So we already had annotated some data, as I said. So in order to make it make the results more appropriate for our use case, which is for toilet facilities. So now we had different masks generated for these objects, like for toilet, like WC, urinal, wall, etc. And we were able to achieve good precision for this segmentation approach. Now the next task. Sorry. Now the next task was to classify each of these masks as clean or unclean. So now these masks, on the basis of these masks, we were able to get this images for each of these object. So now we have the segmented image as our input, and we use techniques like color analysis, texture analysis. So for clean unclean analysis, we have basically used OpenCV packages like OpenCV now. So we have used these different techniques like edge detection, etc., to determine cleanliness. And we have also used color. So now once we know whether a particular object in an image is clean or not, we have to combine results for each of these objects to make the prediction for a particular image. And similarly, now once we have the result for an image, we'll combine results for all images in a toilet block to get the result for a particular toilet block. So in order to do that, we use, like for instance, if I have 5 images for a toilet block, I use criteria like if 75% of the images come out to be clean, I call the toilet block clean. Similar for different masks in an image. So this is the technique that we used in order to classify toilet blocks as clean or unclean. And this model is running every day. So every day there are around 600, 700 inspections that happen by 11 a.m. So Prerna, please next slide. So, so if we see from March until September, so in March around only 350 inspections, 360 inspections were happening. It grew a bit in April, and now we are seeing around 600, 700 inspections every day. So we have around 1200 toilet assets, and if we count like till now up to 2 lakh plus photos have been analyzed using AI/ML, and daily on an average 5,000 images get analyzed using this model. So from the toilet blocks that we analyze, around 8% get marked as unclean by the model, and from what we have observed, that 30% of the unclean toilets have shown improvements and have later turned out to be clean in further further days. So yeah, these are some of the AI/ML models that I worked on here. And apart from that, there have been so one more thing. Prerna, next slide, please. So in order to deploy these models, we've used AWS, and we use AWS services like AWS Lambda, API Gateway. We've used SageMaker notebooks as well. We worked on EC2 instances as well. And sometimes there's a need to build APIs. Like for this model deployment, we built an API. So we used Fast API and Nginx for API development. Sometimes there are other requirements for APIs. Like for instance, we had to do geofencing recently. So using the GIS alignments of projects, we built an API which could ensure that people mark the attendance tracking within the boundaries. So these are some of the ways we use cloud services also for deployment of our models, and for other tasks as well, such as automating certain tasks which are needed. So apart from that, we also have many reports which go out on a weekly basis or on a fortnightly basis. So in order to make that easier, we have built multiple dashboards, and I think my colleague Rajendra will take up that part. So he'll explain dashboards. So thanks.
Rajendra, could you come in, please? Rajendra, we are unable to hear you.
While Rajendra comes, quickly, also the reason to talk about data science projects is twofold. Many of the data science projects which ended up being built in-house by Nikita and Rajendra uh, started with a solutions or a PM saying that this is a problem which we are facing. And to show you that there is in-house internal capacity to also take a particular insight into closure. And then we have all the necessary tools, etc., to go for deployment. So we are also doing a part of it internally. And the second thing is that maybe in the recent future, right now, though we are staffed, in the recent near future, we might have another data scientist position also opening up. And so those are the two reasons which we are covering. Rajendra, are you here? Pranjal, do you want to take it up instead of Nikita?
Sure. I think I'll just give a brief introduction, and Nikita, if it's okay, then you can continue.
Yeah, sure.
मीटिंग नहीं चल रही, बच्चों से चल रही है।
Sunilji, please can you mute yourself?
नहीं, कोई नहीं है।
Right. All right. So the thing is not, as we've explained, right, we have to be extremely agile in what we are developing and what we are doing to create the maximum impact for our users, right? If something does not price, we just leave it then and there, and we think of other alternatives, right? One of the bigger problem statements was the because there was so much in development, right? Our developers at NHAI were already extremely bogged down with a lot of feature requests that were coming in from various divisions. However, that being said, they were not able to spend the maximum time in developing all these reports. So a lot of data is being coming in, but all of those has to be shown in a very segregated, in a very beautiful manner, which can drive some insights to the leadership for everything to be useful, right? So that was a very big constraint on our part, that looking at the development bandwidth, right? We had to churn out extremely good dashboards that can be used for the leadership in a very, very short period of time. And not just that, we also had to stay agile in the fact that there can be a lot of changes once those dashboards are moved into production, and like any kind of new filters that need to be added, or any kind of new variations or new cuts or new data points that anybody needs, it has to be basically all those requests have to be taken up in a very quick and a very agile format. So that's when we started building dashboards on Power BI, and there are a lot of reports and dashboards on the data lake portal itself, but again, there are a lot of different dashboards are now created using Power BI for various insight generation for the leadership, which now Nikita and Rajendra can take it up. So all of this so the thing is that our leadership is extremely supportive in providing a lot of tools and any kind of things that we need over here. So because they understand the impact that we're trying to create, and that's when we were able to onboard Power BI to give and to build all these beautiful dashboards. Nikita, over to you, please.
Yeah, so for instance, this is a dashboard for toilet maintenance as we were talking about it. So it shows that there are 830 toll plazas, 1252 toilet blocks registered, and it shows the numbers for the toilet blocks which have been inspected today. And out of them, the ones which are clean, the ones which are unclean, the ones which did not do their inspection by 11. So those we call as toilet blocks not in service. Then we also show some metrics like toilet blocks which have been inspected at least once during the last 30 days and some other metrics. So if we go down, we can see, so we can see like different metrics at a glance here through these dashboards. So next slide. So for instance, this is the dashboard for the road maintenance module that we talked about. So now it shows that the number of projects which are under O&M, the total length which is under O&M, the inspections which have been carried out in the current month. So the inspections have to be carried out by the end of each month. So since this month has just kind of begun, the numbers are right now low. So you can see the last month inspection numbers, the total defects which have been submitted on the app. Out of them, the ones which are still open and the ones which are open and open beyond the timeline. Then you can see the percentage of joint inspections also by each office, regional office. So so we present these stats in the form of graphs as well, so that it is much easier to understand. So next slide, please. So we have dashboards for like many other modules as well. Like for instance, this NHAI One dashboard that you see on the left, it shows at a glance the matrix from road maintenance, toilet maintenance, and the RFI module as well. On the right, you can see a dashboard for the RFI module. So here you can see the number of projects against which contractor onboarding has been done, the number of projects against which the inspections are being raised, and the number of projects against which the inspections are being closed. So next slide, please.
Nikita, we might quickly go through
Okay.
or skip these dashboards. You can just tell what these are about. We might be running out of time.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
So yeah, so we again we have some other dashboards, like there are utility shifting cases which are pending. So the dashboard on the left shows the pending cases for utility shifting. Then we have dashboards showing details of the court cases which are going on, how the advocates are performing. So these are the two dashboards you can see here on the screen. Next slide, please. Again, we have dashboards which show, so for a toll plaza, the notification process, the cycle of the notification process, whether it is in progress or not, then showing the remittances which comes from the toll plazas, like the amount which has been deposited. Next slide, please. So this is a dashboard which shows the road accidents. So here again, the total accidents, the total fatalities, the total injuries are being shown. And yeah. So I think these are certain dashboards which have been developed here in order to visualize these stats in a visualize these stats effectively. So my colleague Prerna will take up the GIS part next. So over to you, Prerna.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nikita. And I'm sorry for the lag that we were facing earlier. There was a WebEx trouble. That's completely on me. But we'll quickly try to wrap it up. And the last segment that we'll be talking about is how we have tried to translate the entire project management from an MIS system to a GIS system, right? So if you can imagine this, that there are 2,000, sometimes 3,000 projects that are actively running at a point of time in India, right? And as Harsh and Pranjal and my other colleagues have already said, that there are multi-levels where, you know, the work is actually done, the contracts are issued, and it's finally executed on the field. Now, at the HQ level, our job is firstly focused on project management. And the second vertical is, of course, to make the lives easy of the people who are working on the field. And for both these separate verticals, one of the key factors that we can add into the recipe of project management is location. Now, because we are working with tangible assets, right? Every highway, every toilet block, every toll plaza, everything, or even a pothole, even a crack on the highway is having a location. Now, earlier also, it's not like this information was not available with NHAI and its field officers earlier. It was there. In fact, we even have certain survey vehicles that ply on our highways, you know, and that too in separate lanes individually. And they do collect, you know, the lat longs at a very fine interval. But it was not in a collated form. And when it is not in a collated form, it is difficult to, you know, put it on one platform, put it on one canvas, and see what you can do best with it, right? Like the example of the dashboards that we just saw and the accident management. Now, if an accident is occurring again and again at the same location, it can be, shown in the form of a heat map. This is very basic GIS stuff that we are talking about, but it is extremely useful because if a person who is somehow if having a state of Maharashtra under his purview, and they want to see that which are the highways that are most prone to accidents, which are the highways that are having the maximum number of potholes, or which are the highways that are running in delayed stages because of any various reasons. So all of that information on a map is far more meaningful, far more insightful as compared to tabular data. So earlier, as you can see on my slide, earlier it was all tabulated and there was no option for, having any kind of spatial insights, and difficulty in managing projects, especially when one project is handed over to another contractor. It could have a different project code. It could have a different kind of project work, but it is ultimately happening on the same spatial piece of land on the highway, right? So bringing all of it from an MIS to a GIS was one of the major challenges that myself and my colleagues who are working in the sector have had to face when we joined NHAI. But if I speak of myself personally, I love building data because it works as a foundation for almost everything that we do, and it just adds on like a nice cushion in between, because from there on the entire story changes. It absolutely changes. It looks like a revamped system. You can do 100 other things which earlier were not possible. And I think most of us in fact, sorry, all of us in ITPMU are trying to do that, to make things better and make it more stronger, more usable, and easier to use for people on the field, as well as for the upper management here. So a quick glance of the kind of projects that we do, which are GIS heavy. Like the first snippet that you can see on my slide is a GIS based project management dashboard. Now it is, if you actually see from a GIS perspective, it's a very simple thing, right? We have brought in all our highways together. We have the vector data for it together. We have placed it on one canvas, and we are able to see, okay, at a click of a button, I can see today that yes, if I want to click on a particular line on a particular segment, I can see when was this project awarded, what is its current stage, what is the amount of money that has been put in on that, if there are any delays, by what number of days the delay is happening, and if there is any pendency happening on it, any kind of legal issues. If you simply want to see the latest drone video that has been captured on that particular highway, all those things have been put together in a simple dashboard that is being offered to our users, right from the HQ level to even the PIUs, where they can simply monitor their projects and see what is the status like for the highways that are under their jurisdiction. The second interesting example, a project is of dams, as we like to call it. It's drone analytics monitoring system, and it is a very hard-coded, I would say it sits on a GIS platform, but it is a purely AIML system. But it is a very interesting project because it has something to offer to GIS people, to the AIML experts, data scientists, product managers, because it is a huge project by itself, and we'll be coming to that in the next slide, and even for solution architects, because a lot of integration has actually happened in making these dashboards successful and to make it usable. Another example that I like to cite is something that we've very recently done. It started with a simple discussion that, okay, as Harsh had initially said, that we do planting of, trees along our avenues, which is on the left-hand side and right-hand side of the highway, as well as on the median, which is the middle part. Now, if NHAI is, by mandate, pumping in so much of money in planting these highways and, keeping them green, so how do we monitor it? And the first thing which came to our mind was satellite data. Why not, tie hands with NRSC and ISRO and develop a product which helps us see that what is the general health of green cover that is maintained along our highways. And for that also, the first thing that we needed was, where are our highways? At what is the chainage? That is just a kind of a unique lat long for each part of the highway, and what is the right of way, the width of the highway wherein it's constructed, and we also have some space left for the planting. So these are some basic GIS data that was needed just to make these projects fly. And in the coming months, there are other projects also which are in the pipeline, and we'll definitely be needing more help in experts from GIS. So if I just move to the next slide. A quick touch upon what was dams earlier. So So the erstwhile system was that for the O&M projects, that are the projects which are under maintenance, every 6 months we used to have a drone flight and the data used to come to us. And for the under construction projects, as you can see on the right side, the videos used to come in every month. Now you can imagine that for projects which are under construction and we have 12 videos of so much of GB and data coming into our system, but nobody had the time to actually sit and see those videos and identify, okay, yeah, in the previous month this obstruction was there and the next month also it's there, so perhaps something needs to be done, or tally it with the reports that are coming from field that yes, from this part to this part the construction is done, however the drone is not really corroborating that. So it was possible, but in a very limited way. There was no automated feature detection. There was no option of overlaying multiple layers and seeing what is happening, what is not. It was a time-consuming process. I mean, of course, it can be boring to sit and watch through a video, which is an hour plus, just to see what is happening. Now, this entire system has been revamped with the help of GIS and AI/ML, and it has become one of the most interesting projects that currently the IT division is taking care of. And so it's a fully AML system. As I mentioned, we have automated analytics and we have separate suites now. So for under construction projects, there are separate KPIs that will be coming in, like how much wearing course has been constructed, which is the topmost layer on which the roads, the cars and the vehicles actually ply. Then we have O&M, wherein the drone, in 1 month will give you that, okay, this is a pothole here. It needs to be fixed within a stipulated time period. And in the next flight, the pothole is gone. So it's, it's one of the best and the most robust and fastest ways to actually see what is happening on ground. Of course, the ground staff are our support system, and without their, vetting, none of this, without their support, none of this would have happened. But it's also to make their life easier. Now, if a road safety auditor has been entrusted with a particular highway, and they want to go on the field and they want to see what are the factors that are not so good as far as road safety goes. And on top of that, on their hand in the mobile phone, if they have something like this, and they're also able to see which were the accidents that have previously been reported, which are the potential black spots or the potentially vulnerable hotspot areas where accidents do occur, all that information available on the field on a GIS platform, simply makes their life much easier. So dams is one such project, and we are happy to have a very good team here who's, and of course, with the help of technical service providers, the drone service providers who actually fly and ensure that they capture the drone data within the the stipulated SOP that has been provided to them, because none of this would function if one drone flight happens at a particular height and the other happens at a different height or a different speed. All that has actually been brought together over the period of last 1 or 2 years. Significant trainings have been done, and we are soon to make this project live. And so this is one example of an interesting project which can attract everybody. Like it opens the floor for so many kind of expertise to come forward, and we are hoping to have an exciting team in the future as well, and to do more of such projects. So I'll quickly just show a few seconds video on this.
No, I don't think it's audible.
Okay. So I'll just speak through now. This is a live video of the dashboard that has been built under dams, wherein you can see that the stretch of land is visible. We have certain analytics on the right side pane, which gives us the exact number of potholes that have been identified by the drone. The edge drops that are, the difference between the carriageway and the shoulder, that should not be too steep. The cracks, graveling, unauthorized, median openings, and several other analytics just are visible to you on the dams. And this has all been taken out from AI/ML models, and it's shown to our users. And it would also have some kind of a change detection platform available. Like one drone video can be compared to previous drone videos available in time. And it allows users to jump to particular locations, right? So if it's been For example, somebody on the field, a consultant from NHAI on the field knows that at so-and-so chainage, at so-and-so location, a few number of potholes have been detected. They can simply use the system, go to that particular chainage, go to that particular location, and can see that, yes, even the drone flight has suggested and the dams has suggested a few potholes or a few defects on that particular stretch. So it helps NHAI see, through another, like it's a very scientific and a very organic way to test the quality of our highways, to check whether road safety parameters are being met, to check whether plantation is being done properly. And that's a glimpse of dams from our side. Yes, so thank you, and over to Pranjal for taking up the capacity building part. Thanks.
Right, thanks, Prerna, for that amazing introductory session on dams. Uh, all right, so this is a basic overview of what kind of users access the platform and data lake platform and on the application on a daily basis. So we have a total of 8,000 registered users with us. Out of those, around 5,000 to 6,000 do actively participate on adding information on the platform and contribute to the progress of the highways. Next slide, please. Next slide, Prerna, please. Right. So, for those who love to travel, right? So the thing is that we've been once any kind of a feature is developed and released on the platform, right? It is very necessary for adoption that we actually train the active users, right? The users who are there on the field, we train them on how to use the particular feature, what kind of impact would it have, and basically how do they need to use it, right? And to do that, we all of the team has been traveling all in around India based on the different features that have been released. And we do provide a lot of regular trainings and workshops for all our users. We do take care of them a lot in that sense. We also have text and video based standard operating procedures on the platform, which are hosted for ready reference. And we have our technical help desk, which is part of we have a separate help desk for data lake and a separate help desk for the NHAI One mobile application, and we have SLAs in place where we need to ensure that the turnaround time for solving every kind of a problem is less than 24 hours. And also we have provided data lake operators, specific people who are trained in data lake, who we definitely or at all offices of NHAI. So this is very, very important for the people, for the person who will be applying for the training and support role over here. And they will be managing all of this information, and they will be setting up all of these scheduling meetings. They will be working around how we can give much more efficient trainings. How do we enhance the support that we already have to ensure that the users on the field are not facing any kind of problems on the platform and on the NHAI One application. And if they're facing problems, those are resolved in a very, very timely and efficient manner, and they're satisfied with those kind of resolutions in the first place. So a very important slide for the people who, for the product managers, of course, and for the person who will be applying for the training and support role out there. Next slide, please. So these are some of the workshops that we regularly do across India. We have around 200 PIUs right across India, and we definitely tend to visit the most of them. We have collaborated and consolidated trainings, and you can see most of us are there on the field sometimes just to explain how things work over here on these portals. Next slide, please. So Harsh, over to you.
Thanks. Prerna, can you go to the next one? So, as you can see, there's a huge potential of digital at NHAI, and we've been scratching the surface with it over the last couple of years, even before, and then in the last 2 years with product AI, ML, and GIS. And there's a lot more left to be done. And hence, we're also expanding our team. if you are still connected, what now we'll cover is what are the positions which are open, and how do you apply for those? Like, what is the process for applying? Because it's a government authority, so you have to follow certain things when you apply, right? And so these are the open roles right now. We have product manager, system architect, GIS specialist, training and support. For product manager, we have 2 posts. So these posts, joint advisor and assistant advisor, these are levels. So NHAI is able to have experts hired laterally, and these are on 3 levels: assistant advisor, joint advisor, and advisor. And so the posts, when you see the name advisor, assistant advisor, that's the level. The same way you might have SD1, SD2, SD3, so on. And so right now we have 2 positions open for PMs. One joint advisor. Nidhi will come to you. I'll just cover this first. One joint advisor and one assistant advisor. The joint advisor posts are for 5 years of experience, and assistant advisor posts are for 3 years of experience minimum. These are the minimum years of experiences. As you saw earlier in the team, the levels of experiences vary a lot. So there is variance in it, but these are the minimum, is what I'm saying. For the assistant advisor, the pay scale is roughly 13.2 to 15.8. I'll defer you to the job advertisement which has been put out, and I'll tell you where to see it to get an exact sense of how that will be calculated. But that's the rough pay scale, from 13.2 lakhs to 15.8 for an assistant advisor, and from 18 to 21.7 for a joint advisor, and with increments and all, which is part of the policy which you can read. What is absolutely important is for to meet the minimum requirements in terms of years of experience and also the degrees which you have, right? Because those get checked diligently by the administrative teams. And so for product manager, you need to at least have a bachelor's degree. It could be a BSc or a BTech in any engineering field or a business administrative field. So that's largely like a broad thing to be a PM. For system solution architect, again, a bachelor's degree, could be tech, could be anything in computer science, IT, BA, or a related field, right, which are related to these fields from a university experience. So if you think you are qualified for this, and if you are in doubt, I would say apply, and then let the process figure out whether you meet the requirement or not. So for GIS specialist, the minimum requirement is a master's degree in traffic and transportation planning, urban planning, infra planning, geoinformatics, remote sensing from any recognized university. And so these are all minimum degrees. For example, Prerna here is actually a PhD, right? So these, when we are talking about, are minimum degrees. Training and support, the last role which Pranjal spoke about, is at the level of joint advisor again, with 5 years of experience in training, technical documentation, capacity building, etc. The degree requirements are a master's degree in BA and HR. Pranjal, these are minimum masters for training and support.
Right.
If you could quickly
Right.
check.
Yeah.
Check it. And so the years of experience and the degree requirements are not negotiable. Those are the ones which you have to meet, right? And the years of experience also have to be related to your to the domain which you are applying. The last date to apply for this is 30th October 2024. Next. What are the softer side of things which you should probably have to be happy here? You should be interested in impact. There are a lot of tech projects which you could do in the private sector also, but the projects which you do within the government have national scale impact, right? They come with a lot of complexities, which can be a challenge for someone who wants to tackle such kind of complexities, right? If you work in any legacy organization, large organization, there are certain things. And so you have to, if you think of that as a challenge, and if you are able to jump over that hurdle, you can do a lot of real national scale social impact. You have to be an IC, right? As you see, the team is a little bit of a lean team, right? The tech team is also a lean team, and most of us are ICs. So you're individual contributors, right? You should be able to own your own modules end to end. And it doesn't mean that if you're a PM, you need to be a developer. But if you're a PM, you're a module owner. As a PM, you have to take care of everything which needs to be done to make that product successful, right? It could be making presentations, going to the field, talking to people. It could be anything. Like, so it's not so strictly compartmentalized as it would be compartmentalized, say, in the private sector.
Hello,
The
Harsh.
challenge here is
Yeah, I am Shiva here, and sorry to interrupt. Can you please go back to the previous slide?
fair enough.
No, that job descriptions for the for a GIS specialist. For a GIS specialist, there it mentioned that masters in transportation they had asked, but I do have the masters in civil engineering, which is relevant to the structural engineering. Like we design the design of the culverts and design of the bridges and the design of the dams. And apart from that, I do have the masters from University of Texas Austin in the domain of the AI/ML domain. So am I eligible for that? Hello.
Prerna, GIS mein, what have you written?
So for GIS, as of now, these are the subjects that we are taking in. So if you have a master's in civil engineering and, as you said, AI separately,
Yeah.
I think you can apply, and maybe
Mhm.
because there are other divisions also who would be, instrumental in taking in the applications and seeing the eligibility. So your profile sounds interesting, so I think you should apply.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
As I said earlier, if you are in doubt whether your degree, because in certain places it says related fields, etc. If you're in doubt whether your degree is applicable or not, you should apply. The process would, it will go through the requisite departments which will decide whether this is applicable or not. Can you go to the next slide?
Thank you.
Well, hi, Harsh. This is Nidhi. Sorry to interrupt again because I also have a query regarding the training and support eligibility. So, should I ask now or should I wait for some
Go
time,
ahead.
as
Go
you
ahead,
say?
Nidhi. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here on the slide, it is mentioned that master degrees in business administration is required. But well, I have gone through with the document available on the website. There was a requirement of bachelor's also in
Bachelor's.
the business
Basic
management.
requirement is bachelor's. I just checked that.
Yeah, but bachelor's in business administration, it was a BBA.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have been in the training industry from the last almost 9 to 10 years. But my
Okay.
point of question is here that if you are asking specifically for BBA, it is difficult to get the ideal candidate. If I am not wrong, this webinar is for the getting the ideal candidates, right?
Nidhi, what does your experience look like, if you could tell me?
Well, I am graduate in the computer application along with MBA and almost
But you
7
have
to
an
8
MBA,
years of
right? So
training
that would
experience.
work.
So you are applicable.
You're
So you are
applicable.
eligible to apply for this.
You've already
No,
done
but
an MBA, no?
in the yeah, I am MBA, but bachelor's degree mentioned है उसमें BBA.
ठीक है,
इसलिए मैंने
नहीं,
सोचा कि
अगर
मैं पूछ ही
let
लेती
me
हूँ.
clarify.
Correct. You're right. So if you meet a higher degree, so if
Right.
you go through the application, if you meet the higher degree in the desirable experience, then it's already part of the merit.
Then you're already then you can apply. So everybody who's attending this webinar should understand that there is a basic requirement and there's a desirable requirement. If you're meeting the desirable and you're meeting the higher degree, then you're eligible to apply. You'll be considered. However, if you do not meet if you neither meet the desirable experience nor the basic experience, then there might be a problem. But I would
Should I
still
go
urge you
ahead?
to apply. Yes, I would
Yeah,
still
please
urge you
do
to
apply.
apply. In any case, I would still urge you to apply. It totally depends on how your interview goes and all the processes that goes afterwards. And that's when, like, you shouldn't miss out on the opportunity just because of this kind of paperwork. That's what I'm saying. Nidhi, you can apply. Any other
Next.
questions?
Is Anil. For each of these job profiles, what is the maximum age by criteria?
All right.
I think it's we'll check. It's mentioned
Sorry,
in
actually, there was some technical glitch, so I just got disconnected. Sorry, I just missed the entire conversation.
for the age related. So we'll get back to you, Nidhi. For the age related question, Please
It's
refer to
mostly-
the policy. I think there is
Yeah,
something written
it's,
there.
it's mentioned over there in the age limit for
No, no,
the,
this is not my age-related question. I
Nidhi,
asked
is
for
it not
BBA
the-
degrees.
Nidhi,
Nidhi,
this
there
is
was
not
another
for
question.
you.
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
another
Oh,
question.
sorry. I'm so sorry for interruption. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anilji, there is for the age, right? There's a different age limit for every kind of profile. For joint advisors, it's mostly around 48, less than 48 years. And for assistant advisors, it's at like less than 35 years. So you could just see that.
Okay, sure. I'll check that. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Maybe we can connect afterwards, please. Okay. You have I've just posted my LinkedIn over here as well. You can connect on LinkedIn and we can connect afterwards. That's it.
Thanks, Pranjal. Thank you.
One next question.
Yeah, sorry. Now can I just get into this?
Tell me.
Nidhi, the
Yeah,
answer
so
to your question was just apply it for the position. And if you have any other clarifications on what is the kind of role, etc., Pranjal has given his details, so you can reach out to him.
sure.
We have
Thank
to
you.
also, Prerna, just go one slide earlier.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, I just want to clarify completely, we are not in the position to say whether something which has already been advertised, whether you will meet, not meet, etc. So the best advice which we can give you is you read through it. If you are in doubt, you can still apply. The process will check whether you are eligible to meet the requirements or not, right? And don't self-reject if there is any confusion, etc. That's the only advice which we can give. Rest you can connect to people. So as I was saying, the challenges are to obviously doing interesting work. You can do the same kind of work much more easily, say within the private sector. You can think, oh, what's the big deal in making an app, etc. But the whole point is to do challenging tech work within the government, where once you are able to do it, you will be able to bring in a lot of national scale impact. And it also from a PM and a solution point of view bring its own complexity, right? A government system has its own complexities and challenges and opportunities to work on this from a PM solution GIS perspective. So that gets exercised when you're here. We've done 0 to 1. So we've done all the basic building blocks. We have an IT system, we have GIS, we have a mobile app, etc. So what we will be doing in the next year is building upon it, making sure it is being used effectively, doing a lot of analytics, etc. Yeah, right. Next. So we'll quickly go through what is the application method. So as I said, it is till 30th October. You have to go to NHAI's website. If you go to NHAI's website, if you scroll down to the bottom left, you will find vacancy. And I think that's something which you can use always. There are many other positions. Someone in the question was asking that they're a civil engineer interested in civil engineering. And so there are other open positions which you should go in the vacancy thing. In the vacancy, you will find there is a vacancy with this title, Joint Advisor, PM, Solution Architecture, etc. Click on that, and then you can see the advertisement, the policy guidelines, etc. So you go and you read through everything. What are the guidelines, terms and conditions, etc. For example, the new policy to attract talent allows for 30 days of work from home in a year, right? And so things like that. So all those things are written in the policy guidelines and in the advertisement. So I would first urge you to go through that and get a sense of what is the expectation. Once you've seen that, you go back, press next, Rina. You would go to the vacancy.nhai.org/ICT-PMU portal, right? So the link I have given here, and but you will also, when you see that vacancy and you see that there will be an apply button there. So when you click that, you'll be taken here. Once you are taken here, your first step is to register on it. So this is our internal application portal. So you register on it, you give your email address, you create a sign up form, go next. And so you create an account, you change your password, whatever. Once you inside the portal, you will see an apply now button. When you click on apply now, press next. you can select in one of the 5 positions: joint advisor, product management. So pick the one which you fit the best, and you've gone through the requirement. You click that, and then a form will open. Next. So you can click. So the form opens. The first part of it is basic details which gets pre-filled when you created the account. You need to do your passport photo and a proof, which could be birth certificate or a 10th board certificate. Next. And then you have to tell your specialization, right? And this is how we also check against the requirements. And you have to upload what your graduation degrees have been. If you have any additional certificates, post-graduation degree, everything you have to put here, your year of passing, from which university, what was your CGPA or percentage. It could be at any scale. If it is out of 10, then please mention that. If it is out of 100, it's out of 5, 4, whatever. And then you have to upload either your transcripts or your diploma or whichever certificate you have been given by your college, and these you have to upload. Next. Once you've done that, you have to give your past experience. And this is also important because in each of the job roles, we are asking for what is your experience in the domain as a product manager, as a learning expert, etc. and etc. So you can put your previous employers. I would recommend to put in put it exhaustively, right? Like don't only put the latest one. So you put in the first one, and then there's an option to add more at the bottom of the screen. So you go ahead and add all your years of experiences, which build up to your requisite requirement for the title if you're eligible. Next. Then here it also again asks you for your experience. So it could be that you've had 10 years of experience, but your experience in product management has been lesser than that. So here you talk about your domain experience. You put in the number of years. So in select year, you put the number of years you've had and the number of months. So you want to know how many years and months of experience as per you. We will check everything through the documentation you give and your CV, etc. But this is to prove what part of your experience is also part of your domain experience. And then you can give details about it. So here you can talk about, in this example, about your GIS experience, etc. And then it asks certain sub questions. Okay, do you have experience in analysis? Do you have experience in quality check of data? Do you have experience in syncing data between tech and other databases, etc.? So you can tick the ones which are applicable to you, and you can tell a little bit about why you think you're applicable here. We'd recommend don't copy paste the same things. There are applicants who copy paste the exact same things. If you don't have that, don't pick it. Or you only mention if you have experience meeting it. Next. And in the last, you can mention anything extra which has been, which you want to mention, which has not been asked earlier. And then your LinkedIn profile, if any, your CV, and you can click a picture of your signature and upload it, and you can submit it, right? I would suggest not to leave this for the last day. Historically, we've seen a lot of rush on the last day. And so I would suggest you try to fill your applications beforehand. These are, can you go to the next? These are positions in Dwarka. So if that has not been clear, these are positions in Dwarka, in Delhi. That is where the current team is also sitting. And so that's the thing. And if you have any bugs with the IT system, right, there might be some parts of the application portal which might not be working or are not straightforward for you, or there is a understanding issue. If any of that is limiting you for applying, please shoot an email to itdevelopment@nhai.org with a screenshot or a particular problem which you're having, and you can CC me. My email address has also been given there. So if you are facing any technical issue with the portal, is what I'm asking, then you can formally mention it to that email and CC it to me. Again, I would advise that because 30th is the last date, I would do it earlier than that. All the links are here. The video is also, whoever has registered for the webinar or you have attended on the LinkedIn, you've pressed RSVP on the LinkedIn event, we'll put the link of the recording there. So if you've missed anything, but all of this is there on the NHAI portal. If you go to the bottom in the vacancy, you'll get everything. And the guidelines also, like someone is saying that there is a guidelines. The guidelines are also there. The policy circular on what are the terms and condition of hiring. Just want to add a caveat. This is not a private sector organization which is hiring. Whenever the government does something, it has to do it in a fair manner, which is applicable to all. So there aren't a lot of negotiables, which, oh, can we do this? Can we do that? There is transparency in the process. If you meet the requirement, your application will go through. In most of the 5 applications, once you've applied, you will be given a take-home exercise. So for example, for a PM, you will be given a take-home exercise on a particular product management problem. For solution architecture, maybe to design an architecture for a problem statement. And so you will be in GIS also. So that has been our practice. We, as soon as someone applies, we send a take-home exercise once the process has completed. And once that is done, there will be an interview. There's a question whether this is a contractual position or a permanent position. I would say think of it as, if the question is coming to ask whether it's a permanent position within NHAI, and it's not a permanent position. These are specialized roles and expertise which the government hires on a contractual basis. But what that means in principle is that if you go through the guidelines which have been given, you'll be given a contract which starts for a year and it keeps getting extended. For example, I have been here for 2.5 years. Prerna has been here for 2 years and above. I think Pranjal has also completed 2 years. And so that's how it operates. It's not because it's a lateral entry position for a specialized positions. These are handed out in contracts. But if you look at how the work goes, for example, someone is asking is 3 years maximum. So I would urge you to read the policy. There are certain parts of the policy which will answer your questions, right? There is NHAI has done a bunch of these things to attract talent, right? So if you go through the policy, it will mention about when you are applicable for increments, what will be the increment. If you've completed X number of years as an assistant advisor, will you be eligible to become a joint advisor? If you've done joint advisor, will you be eligible to become an advisor? What are the modalities of it? All of it is mentioned in the policy, which is publicly available at the vacancy page, which you can see here, the policy guideline where the mouse is, right? So I would urge you to go through all of it. And as Pranjal was mentioning in chat, don't self-reject. If you don't meet the requirement, the system will reject you. So just apply. If there are any doubts related to it, you can apply. Are there any other questions before we close it? This went longer than extended, but I hope this has been beneficial for you. If you have any other doubts, you can about the work. You know how to reach out to most people who are here. So you can reach out to them and ask about how it is to work here, what are the challenges, etc. But the process will be through application only. You have to make an application and each application is going to be treated as per the policy guideline only. So are there any other questions? Nidhi, you have a question? Your hand is raised.
Yeah, sorry, actually, I have already asked, and it was really an insightful session to know more about NHAI and its projects going on. I will definitely go for a training and support, and hopefully to, get selected at least for the interview.
Right. Yeah. So again, I would just repeat the disclaimer that please check your qualifications and how it fits the advertisement which has been given and the experience, and then on suitability apply based on what has been written here. There are things which we've said, but go by what has been written there. One person had asked whether you can apply for more than one position. The portal allows you to apply for more than one position, but I would say pick something which you are the best fit for, right? There are very few people who would fit for everything equally best. So pick something which you are best suited for and apply for that. But the portal allows you to apply and we don't stop you. So if you think you want to apply for all the 5 positions, you can apply for all the 5 positions also. But please make sure you meet the qualification requirements.
Anything else from anybody? Or
So just go through the advertisement and the policy guideline. The objective of the webinar was to tell you about the projects, the hiring method and requirement, and all of it is written there, and that should be followed. And we've told you about the portal, etc. Right. So we'll close again. Thanks everybody for joining. There'll be other positions in the future, and so if you've registered for the webinar, we'll let you know about that. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.